I wonder if I could make a rocket with this stuff. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. Recently I've been putting out a bunch of videos on boiled linseed oil, and I did a video a while ago on making your own boiled linseed oil, and then I did a video on bleached linseed oil. And so we have this whole genre from raw linseed oil to long, several days bleached, to one day bleached, to boiled in your backyard, to boiled in a vacuum, to the store-bought boiled linseed oil. And I really wanted to do some comparisons on them, and also then talk about what you do with the rags, the safety involved into it, and what are some other things you need to know about boiled linseed oil. So let's dive into this and take a look at what we got. Now, boiled linseed oil rags, or any oil rag for that matter, need specific circumstances. They need oxygen to create the chemical reaction that actually creates the heat. And number two, they need to be concealed so that there isn't a whole lot of heat exchange, so that the heat can be held in and insulated. And often that is a perfect place in the bottom of a trash can. So here I'm going to kind of replicate it by putting it in a box and kind of closing the box up. So there's still a little bit of air movement, but it is mostly insulated and the heat can stay inside. And then of course I'm going to put it in my fire pit so that I'm not lighting my basement on fire. I put it in there and waited. And after about 3 hours, so normally the last time I did it was about 2.5 hours, this time it was about 3 hours, I came outside to find it smoking. And how would you like to come down in your shop and find this coming out from the trash can? The smoke just got bigger and bigger for about 10 to 15 minutes until suddenly I noticed around the other side that there was fire. Just like that, the rags created enough heat that they caught on fire. It didn't take much longer until the whole box was ablaze and then burning down. Now, if this was in a trash can beside a fire pile or a scrap pile in your shop, would not be a happy day. So yes, they do catch on fire, and yes, they can be dangerous. So what exactly should you do with the rags that you've just wiped up and now they're covered in boiled linseed oil and they're still a little bit damp? You know that they're going to burst on fire if you put them in the right circumstances, and that is, just wadding them up and throwing them in the trash. That wadded up design will hold the oxygen in place, and it will hold the heat in place but still allow oxygen to come in, and that can be very dangerous. So what exactly do you do? Now, some people are going to take the rag and they're going to throw it into a jar of water, and that is great. That will stop the rag from curing. The problem with it is then if you take the rag out of the water and you throw it in the trash can, eventually that water is going to dry off, and then that curing will start again, and then it can relight on fire. So putting it in the water is only a stopgap. Make sure that you have something you do. If you're going to throw out that whole jar of water, great. If you're going to then take the rags out and then throw them away, not so great. So be careful of the water. If you have a fireplace or something like that, or a fire pit outside, throw them in the fire pit. It's great. If they do ignite, you get to see it. And if they are, then great. It's in a fire-safe zone. What I end up doing is I just lay them out flat, and I lay them on the ground for a day or two. And that will allow it to cure, and then you can throw it away. And you'll find that these suddenly become hard and brittle, and they're almost like a piece of plastic. And that is perfectly safe then. So leaving it on the floor allows air to come in, it doesn't allow heat to build up, and it allows them to cure in a safe manner. The other thing I'm going to get a lot of questions about are the drying times. So I actually want to take a little closer look at this and see, what does store-bought dry in comparison to the boiled or bleached? Is there any time on that, or is there any color difference between them? So let's dive in and take a look. Here we have a plate where I put on the store-bought oil, the vacuum boiled linseed oil, home boiled linseed oil, 1 day bleached, and then 3 day bleached. And so you can kind of see a little bit in here. The camera may or may not pick it up, the 3-day bleached is a little bit lighter than the 1 or home boiled. Not by much, and unless they weren't right beside each other, you wouldn't be able to see it. If I were to bleach it longer, I'm sure I could get it closer to the color of like what a mineral oil would put into it, which the mineral oil will still bring out the color in the wood, but it leaves it a little bit more of a natural look as opposed to the rich yellow of the boiled linseed oil. As to drying times, I came back to it 12 hours later, and both the store-bought and the vacuum boiled were still a little bit wet as well as the rest. After about 24 hours, the store-bought oil was completely dry. The vacuumed oil was a little bit tacky still. I'd give it another hour or two and it would dry out completely. The home-boiled stuff I made in my backyard dried out completely after about 30 hours. So it took a little bit longer, but still pretty close to that, and nowhere near to the several days of the raw linseed oil. The bleached and 3-day oil were both completely dry after 48 hours, so 2 days. So they'll take a little bit longer, but still considerably drier than the flaxseed oil, which this might sit wet for 5, 6, 7 days, or maybe in a week under the right conditions. So that gives you a little bit idea in coloring. Unless they're right next to each other, you're not going to see any color difference between the store-bought, the home-brought, and the bleached. There really isn't that much difference in them, and I'm really happy with how they came out. There really isn't a problem with the store-bought oil. It's just some people are kind of skittish about the ingredients in it, but I do like the idea of making my own finished with the home boiled. I think I'm going to be using this more than buying it from my friend. So, yeah. So that's about it for today. I know this has been a lot of weird information on boiled linseed oil. It's one of my favorite topics, and one that I would like to dive into a little bit more in the future. If any of you have any more questions, I know I didn't answer all of it, feel free to shoot those down below. I do want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the reason why I can keep doing this and buy the supplies to make videos like this. If you'd like to help out or just look at Patreon, you can do so right down there. Also, if you want to subscribe or see more behind the scenes footage, you can do that right over here. That's about it for this week, and until next time, have a wonderful day.